Adriana Monique Alvarez, she is an international best-selling author and mentors high-level coaches, consultants, and service providers on how to start their own highly profitable publishing house that creates a global imprint. Adriana is so amazing. It's so good to have you here, my dear. Let's bring this woman out here. How are you? Woo! How are you, mama? I think you might be muted. Yeah, make sure you unmute yourself.
There we go.
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much.
It's so good. Oh my goodness. We've all been preparing for this for months now, and we're finally here.
I know, and it is beyond exciting. Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's really cool. We're creating such an amazing container. But you know what I want to do is really have you share that wild story of yours. Last time when you and I were talking on my show, talked about some of the depth of what's taking place within you and your family and that spirituality that actually comes from, which is birthing into the success that you've got. But let's really talk about what you're doing. How have you gotten to where you are today? Because I am excited because Adriana is going to be part of this next book series. She's one of the authors of the Wealth book that's coming out. And you also are very well versed in publishing. So what do you got for us today, sister?
Oh my goodness. Well, what I was asked to share is about radical wealth. And what does this mean? And one of my favorite quotes kept coming to me, and this is the real measure of wealth. How much we'd have if we lost all of our money. And I would love to hear where everyone's joining from, because one of my favorite things is the vastness of this beautiful world. And I'm joining you all from the middle of nowhere, Colorado, and you'll see how this plays in, because I am right next to no man's land, which bumps up right next to God-forsaken land. And so for the last chunk of time, I've been figuring out what I'm doing here and why I was asked to come back and return to the land that my family's been for 5 generations. So, Rhonda, I want to thank you first of all and appreciate you and Brian and your entire team, because it takes a tremendous woman to hold this vision, to invest in the vision, and to actualize it. And I also want to thank every person who's joining us from around the world, because there's so many things that they could be doing, so many places that they could be, and their presence matters, because as we have this experience, we are co-creating it together. Every person who's here and participating, their energy and their activation is just pinging off of every single other person. In fact, I can feel it right now, and I'm grateful for that. In this session, I'm here to remind you of your own wisdom and the wealth that you are being asked to cultivate during this lifetime. I am the person who never expected to take the path of business. I only wanted to travel the world. I wanted to help children in orphanages and do it in exchange for a bag of potatoes. I did this in my 20s, and at 27 years old, I found myself crawling to the bathroom as my body was wrecked with malaria, and I asked for my next step. Within 3 months, I met my husband, and we started our business together. And 12 years later, this business has afforded us a beautiful lifestyle. We've got to travel the world full-time with our children for 5 years. And it expanded and grew what our vision was and what we were really here to do. I'm a USA Today best-selling author, and I have written for or been featured in every top-tier publication in the world. 2 years ago, I started an award-winning publishing house and stepped even further into my role of a sacred storyteller and channel. But perhaps my greatest initiation was having a full-term stillbirth and realizing that I'm a priestess who's meant to travel on both sides of the veil and assist humanity in remembering who they really are and all that they are connected to. So I invite each of you, if it feels good to you, invite your spiritual team to join you. Ask your angels, your guides, and your ancestors to surround you and to open your heart to be shown and to remember what is yours. I find it so interesting that I'm on Wealth Day because I have always experienced wealth, even when I didn't care about it. My parents experienced wealth at a young age because they found success and found their path very quickly. Even in my 20s, when I was hopping around the world as a volunteer, I always had what I needed and so much more. And for 12 years, Derek and I have dedicated ourselves to establishing wealth outside of other people's systems so that we could live and raise our children any way that we wanted. But 14 months ago, we were asked to go on a completely different journey. And one I will admit that I went on kicking and screaming all the way. We were called to the middle of nowhere where my family's from, and I had the opportunity to take over my parents' home and property, their homestead. And there was a few things we were asked to do that seemed completely outside the scope of anything we had done before. We were asked to raise enough food for an entire extended family. We were asked to go into nature and sync up with her rhythms. And we were asked to teach our children about their ancestors and to strengthen their connection to their own guidance. Since then, we have planted 13 fruit trees, 63 flowering plants, and 68 herbs and superfoods. Mm-hmm. We have went to the mountains 2 to 3 days a week. We have disconnected from media, grids, and devices. We slept on the ground, looked up at the stars, cooked our food over a fire, and tuned in to what we were being asked to do and who we were being asked to be. During this time, I have discovered that radical wealth is far beyond what's in the bank account. It is how luxurious and how peaceful we get to live on a day-to-day basis. It's how many people we get to be a blessing to. It is the joy, the bliss, and the lightness that our children get to experience in their time. Wealth is so multifaceted. It's our connection to our own heart and to all that is. Wealth is being rich and abundant in many areas. And what I'm asked to present to you today is this. What are you being asked to create? What wealth are you activating? And what resources are you recognizing and multiplying? What new currencies are you creating? You are the embodiment of wealth. Your children are blessed. Your land is fertile. Your legacy is one that your ancestors celebrate. You are ready. You are light. You were born for such a time as this. Unfurl your wings and fly.
Oh, Adriana, thank you for that. I love hearing this story because you and I actually share a very similar experience, right? I think it was almost like right when we all even started to talk. This year alone went 5 days in nature, water fasting only, into a very, very small hut with absolutely nothing but 1 cup, 1 pot, and a little mattress, completely open, for this same reason, like re-earthing ourselves. And I think this message is very powerful, right? I mean, you've built a massive empire, and I know that you're very humble behind saying that. However, you've now allowed that to let that re-earthing come back, because that's what actually gives us the foundation, the grounding for what we're creating, and the reconnection to our ancestors, and really giving gratitude to Mother Earth. And I think this is a big conversation right now because everyone's in their head, right? And they're forgetting about what's really important in this world, and how we can create wealth in our life isn't by just selling more, and pushing more. Will you share a bit more on how you feel about that? Because it's really a poignant question.
So what you speak of is so true. Right now, it's easy to be in our head and trying to understand, trying to gather the information, trying to decipher and discern. And yet what I'm finding is that none of that is actually taking us to the highest frequency that we have access to. And the minute that we are attuning ourselves to the highest frequencies we can, which is very much outside of that, and it's in the deeper parts of us, like you said, and also in that connection to the actual earth, then when I find myself attuned to that, the best ideas, the most engaging collaborations, the most abundant contracts effortlessly show up. And, you know, even right here on my table, I have my tuning forks, and every single morning and every single night, I use the tuning forks. My children love them. And I tell them we are attuning to a certain frequency, because when we attune to that frequency, then we're there. There is no trying. There is no, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to think harder. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to push through. It simply is the realm in which you operate.
This is big. You know, this is really big. Thank you for bringing that up, because I even, just last week, we're all like, there's so much going on. We're building the summit. And I did a 3-day frequency tuning for the equinox with my spiritual teacher. And, you know, like, there is a new Earth operating system that is being downloaded right now. And today, it's really interesting, Adriana, I had to tell my company, I was like, team, today there's a very special portal that's opening. And this new Earth operating system is actually coming down to our planet. And it's where all that garbage goes away, right? Because when we elevate our frequency, we elevate how we feel. None of that stuff that, oh, she said, they did, he said, it's all gone. And it's interesting that we are actually starting the summit today, because we are literally elevating the frequency of other women, because we so often we're taught, oh, she's this, I'm mad at her, right? But that our young generations, they're not going to experience this. And you and I have been peeling the onions, right?
That's right. And you know, that's why they get to experience something else.
Yeah.
Is because I like to think of us as the bridge generation. We're doing the work. We're recognizing we weren't that generation. We're not the one that's coming, but we're doing everything that we can to usher it in.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's about, this is the other thing that's really coming in, is no matter what's going on in the world, we can experience our absolute best days. Pure joy. Right? Complete peace, unconditional love. We aren't waiting for one day, someday. We get to experience that right now. And the more we do that, well, guess what? The more, like you said, that new earth energy is unfolding.
Yeah, and then you start becoming around others that are also in that frequency. And then, like you said, oddly enough, all of a sudden abundance is coming, things are coming, opportunities are coming, because we're not in our logic mind. We're not thinking about all the things. We are allowing, and this is the real true messages that are meant to come through for us. But we've been so positioned and so stuck in this like societal box of thinking and making all these different changes that we actually stopped tuning in. So Adriana, thank you for the reminder to tune in, to reconnect to the earth, which then creates more radical wealth and abundance in our life. Adriana, I truly love you. I'm so inspired by you. I'm so excited to have you in the next book, and, you know, to really dig more deeply into the work that you're doing, that we're doing, and how we can bring more beautiful wealth into the world.
This past year, as we found ourselves closed off from the world and from each other, a book was being written by a small group of wild women. That book inspired the manifesto that gave birth to a movement. Imagine an emotionally charged letter of gratitude from one struggling anonymous woman to another anonymous woman who'd mentored her and awakened the wildness within her without even realizing it. One wild woman awakening another wild woman, inspiring her to believe when she'd almost given up, to let loose her wildness and step into her true power. Being a wild woman means to lead fearless, to love fearless, to live fearless, to be kind, thoughtful, driven, and balanced, to embrace honest wealth, to trust our intuition, to develop true leadership, and to welcome diversity. We are women gone wild. Come be wild with us.